The FiFine AM8 is a very inexpensive dynamic cardioid microphone that's meant for podcasting, content creators, and gamers. This microphone is reminiscent of a lot of broadcast-style microphones. It is a front address mic, and it does have RGB lights on it. And with those RGB lights comes a very important note. Yes, you can turn them off. See? There you go. But the AM8 might literally be the most requested microphone for me to review ever. But I think the reason why is that this is a $40 to $50 microphone. It is very inexpensive, and people are curious if this could be their first mic like this. And with an inexpensive microphone like this, a lot of people would probably just assume it's either an XLR or USB microphone, but it is in fact both. And during this whole first section, I will be recording both and letting you know in the lower third which one you are hearing. But being able to record XLR and USB at the same time is fantastic. It's actually something the Rode PodMic USB doesn't do. But one thing I do want to mention really quick, I think you can actually see it right here. I actually have two of these right now, and it was really cool. FiFine actually sent an extra one over, this black one, for me to give away. So if you'd like to potentially win this black AM8, just leave a comment down below that you would like to win it, and I'll announce the winner in a short pretty soon. Also, make sure that you're subscribed in order to enter. But I do want to give a big thank you to FiFine for sending me a microphone to try out and a microphone to give away. But just because they sent me this stuff does not guarantee them a positive review. I only do honest reviews. If you're a person that doesn't believe a creator can be unbiased when they are sent a product, I have a few video links I can send you where I quite literally destroyed a microphone with like a hammer or other things that was actually sent to me. So I promise I can be unbiased. But that's one thing about this microphone is there is some positive hype about it. So I wasn't too uncomfortable doing a giveaway because I know that it's already pretty sought after. I hope that you can see our guest today. Blue is right there. What a good guy, just keeping me company. But with the FiFine AM8 microphone, you will get a desktop stand. Also, there is an attached yoke mount. It does come with a windscreen on it. The windscreen is removable, but I don't think you'll be able to find a windscreen that fits this other than the provided windscreen. The only other thing it comes with is a USB-C to USB-A cable. Now, I actually am using the provided desk stand right now, but I attached about 3 tube extenders to it. It's a really cool look. But when it comes to the build quality of what comes with it, the build quality is not great. Did I expect it to be better at this price point? No, I can't say I did. And even FiFine owns that with the AM8. They're like, hey, we wanted to give you as good audio quality as we could, so we skimped a little bit on the build. And for me, I do think sound is more important, generally speaking anyway. At this price point, you just can't expect too much from the build quality. In relation to the build quality, let's quickly talk about the features that are on the microphone. On the top of it, there is a touch-sensitive mute button. On the opposite side of the microphone, there is an additional touch-sensitive button that controls the lights. A gentle tap will switch between different light colors and light modes, but if you hold that button down, it will turn the RGB lights off entirely. Next to the light control button, there is also a gain control dial, as well as a headphone volume control. Additionally, on the back of the microphone, there is a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is right next to the USB-C and XLR connections. So if I wanted to mute this microphone, all of a sudden, and now it's unmuted. That's how it sounds. It doesn't add a click because there isn't a tactile button, but it is really easy to mute. And one thing I can say is if you wanted to adjust the microphone, it could be easy to hit that. And when it comes to adjusting the microphone, I will say that's something that I've had to do a few times, but I think this is more of a me problem. With my relatively heavy headphone cable, my XLR cable, and the USB cable, it's kind of dragging the mic down a little bit. I have it as tight as I can possibly get it on the yoke mount, but there still is a little bit of movement there occasionally, but it's doing okay. With the fact that this has a full-featured USB XLR microphone, all of the things that you want on it, that's absolutely incredible at its price point. So even if the build is not great, this is still shaping up to be a very solid option if the audio quality is good. Which we'll talk about that in a little bit, but honestly, each person is different with their taste, with their voice, their ears. It's going to depend on what you want. But now let's just run through some standard audio tests. Right now I'm about 2 feet away from the microphone. Now I'm about 1 foot away from the microphone. Now about 6 inches from the microphone. And now I am right on top of the microphone. Here's how that sounds. Let's go ahead and do some plosives. Planters pickled peanutses. Planters pickled peanutses. And now here's a quick example without the windscreen. Planters pickled peanutses. Planters Pickled Peanutses. Now if I slowly move the microphone around, here is 90 degrees off axis. Now here is 180 degrees off axis. Now here is 90 on the other side, and now we are back at 0. Now if you're going to use this for gaming, one of its intended purposes, and you have a really loud clicky keyboard with maybe some MX Cherry Blues, here's how this microphone rejects that sound. And since our friend Blue is already here, let's go ahead and do the most important test, the kitty purr test. So right now I kind of have multiple tests going on. I am currently in an untreated room, a pretty reverberant room overall, and I am also recording into the iRig Recorder app in the iPhone 15. And additionally, I am holding the FiFine AM8, which isn't something that I would necessarily recommend, but I do see people do that now. Personally, I would just get a handheld dynamic that has good handling noise, but that's just me. But mostly the reason I'm doing it right now is because I was just too lazy to grab a stand and bring it in here. So that's what's happening. But when I plug the AM8 into the iPhone, I did go into the Blackmagic Cam app, which is one of my favorite apps. And in there you can actually select an audio source, and the FiFine microphone did in fact show up. So this should work with your iPhone and Androids. Just a real quick pause, I wanted to let you know that I did have to use a separate USB-C to USB-C cable for my iPhone 15 Pro. This microphone only comes with a USB-C to USB-A cable, so at the very least you will need a USB-A to USB-C adapter. Now one thing to note when you are in an untreated space is that if you have the microphone pretty close to your mouth and it's very focused on your voice, you probably won't hear too much of the room, especially with a cardioid dynamic microphone like this. Now you're going to be able to hear a little bit more of the room in the recording compared to when it's close to me. But if you are in an untreated space, a microphone like this being relatively close to you is a good decision. So I'm going to jump into a comparison with the FiFine AM8 versus 4 other microphones. I wanted to keep this as budget friendly as possible, so I went with microphones that are similar to the FiFine AM8 and that are under $100. I did also do a review of the K688 as well as the FiFine Tank3, and I did include comparisons in those videos also, so you can go there and look for more references if you want to hear how other microphones sound versus those. I am currently recording USB and XLR. I will switch back and forth and let you know in the lower third what I'm using. I'll do that with all of the microphones. The interface that I'm using is the Focusrite Scarlett Solo, and I am going to be 4 inches away from all of these microphones. And as I mentioned before, this microphone goes anywhere from like $40 to $50. I think right now on Amazon it's like $52. This is the FiFine K688 that does go for a little bit more money than the AM8. This currently on Amazon is going for $73. I do have a full review of this microphone. Actually, I think I have a full review of all of these microphones in this comparison. But much like the AM8, it is an XLR USB hybrid microphone, maxes out at 16-bit, 48 kilohertz. There are a lot of similarities between these FiFine microphones. The biggest difference with all of them is the look of them and the build quality. The build quality on this is solid. It's definitely better than the AM8. So now you've heard the K688, and I just wanted to jump back on the AM8, give you a quick sample of this before I jump to the Tank3. Now you are listening to the FiFine Tank3, an XLR USB hybrid microphone, much like the previous two. And the Tank3, in my opinion, is the best built microphone that FiFine offers. So the name is definitely not random. They named it a Tank because that is how it's built. But much like the AM8 and the K688, this also maxes out at 16-bit, 48 kilohertz. And usually this goes for about $90, but I'm actually looking at the Amazon page right now. It is on a sale for like $76.49. And that's one thing about FiFine products is they do go on sale quite often. So now I've shown you the Tank 3, and I just wanted to jump on the AM8 one more time so you could hear it before I show you the Maono PD200X. The microphone you are listening to now is the Maono PD200X, and once again, this is an XLR USB hybrid microphone, and it does have RGB lights like the AM8, but the PD200X looks very similar to a different FiFine microphone, the K688. And just as a quick note, the K688 does come in pink and white now. The Maono does come in white and black. I don't think it has pink though. But what the Maono does have is 24-bit 48 kilohertz, where the FiFine microphones are limited to 16-bit. Another thing the Maono does offer is limited DSP. When you're using this as a USB microphone, you can go into the Maono Link software, put a high-pass filter on it, add a presence boost. You can also use their limiter or compressor. I don't think those sound very good at this point, but in that software, you can choose what you want your RGB light color to be. You can change the gain of your microphone, your headphones. So it is nice that you do have that, so you can just do it on the fly in your computer, and you're not like actually touching the microphone while you're live streaming and you need to make a change. That was the Maono PD200X. Here's one more quick sample of the AM8 before you listen to the Samson Q2U. Now, when it comes to comparisons with XLR USB microphones, I pretty much always get a comment if I don't include this microphone, the Samson Q2U. Now, the Q2U was one of the first hybrid XLR USB microphones. Currently, it still comes in at $69.99, and even though it is older, it still matches the specs of all the FiFine microphones, coming in at 16-bit 48 kilohertz. But with the Q2U, you can tell it looks a little bit different than those broadcast-style microphones. Even though all the microphones in this comparison are dynamic microphones, this one resembles a handheld dynamic microphone. But a very important note about the Q2U is it has very terrible handling noise. So I feel like a lot of people, especially people that are on camera while they record, move to microphones like this, since you couldn't really hold this microphone and use it. And this whole look has definitely taken over in the XLR USB realm. But looks absolutely aren't everything. I tell myself that in the mirror every day. But the microphone sound quality is obviously the most important. So out of these microphones, they're all pretty similar in price. The Tank 3 isn't always on sale, so it can be a little bit higher, but I always recommend just going with whatever sound you like the most that you think is going to work with your voice. Now I'm going to jump into the review section of this video that's going to feature my opinion. You might have a little bit different of an opinion of this microphone, and that is just fine. That happens. First, I'm going to start a little bit negative, and then we'll bring it up. We'll get a little positive with it toward the end. Let's go into some cons first, though. Now, in my opinion, the biggest flaw of the FiFine AM8 really is the build quality. But like I mentioned before, FiFine just owns that. They're like, hey, we're going to give you a beginner, budget-friendly USB XLR microphone. We're going to have the build quality not be so great, but we're going to give you all of the features that we think you need and a good sound. And for a microphone that's going to live on a desk, on a stand or something, that's not going to be traveled with a bunch, I think that's fine. Well, maybe you can tell where this is going a little bit, since I already said the biggest flaw, and I kind of just said that the biggest flaw is fine, like whatever. But there are a couple noteworthy things just to like watch out for if you do decide to get this microphone. For instance, if you are doing a live stream and you need to adjust the microphone at all, one thing that I have ran into when I've done this is that I can accidentally hit the mute button or accidentally hit the light button on the bottom and change the color. I feel like some people would not be happy about that. So it's just something that I have to think about every time that I'm about to adjust the microphone, is to grab it from the very back and adjust it that way rather than closer to the yoke mount. And speaking of the yoke mount, That is one flaw that I do feel like it has, is that the cables can kind of drag it down a little bit if you are going to do something like I'm doing with the XLR USB and headphone jack plugged in. One of the biggest problems it has is that these tightening knobs are just really slippery. You can't really get good traction on them. And even once you do, I feel like the tightest point that this has still just isn't tight enough. But if you just give the cables a little bit more slack, maybe even Velcro them to the stand that you're using and allow for a little slack there, it should be fine. And actually, when it comes to moving this microphone around, I was actually expecting it to be a little bit noisier when you touch it, just because the build quality isn't really good. But it's fine, and it doesn't have any like resonant frequencies that are bad. Now, one other thing to touch on is the headphone jack in this. It's not amazing, but it's not too bad. I would like it if it could get a little bit louder. But even when you turn this headphone jack all the way up, it's not super noisy or anything. And that is actually one thing I want to talk about very briefly. I will get people that approach me that say, hey, why is my microphone so much noisier than yours? I'll ask some follow-up questions, and then we eventually find out that they're using a 3.5 millimeter cable to go from their headphone jack directly into their camera. Now, that's not something I would recommend doing. A lot of headphone jacks are not very good. They don't have the same quality as the XLR or USB-C port on this. And they can get very noisy. They are not a great option when it comes to recording straight into camera. I would absolutely recommend syncing your audio in that situation. I know it's not as easy as having the sound baked into the video file, but if you just do a quick clap, line it up in post, you'll definitely get better, higher quality. Now that I've gotten that little rant out of the way, some of the biggest pros to this microphone is that it is a full-featured XLR USB microphone that has everything that you need on the actual mic. And on average, this microphone comes in around $50. That's awesome. But with a microphone like this, that isn't expensive but has everything you need, it is perfect for a person that is starting out that maybe doesn't know if they really want to see starting a podcast through, and they just want to throw $50 at a microphone and be like, well, let's see how this goes. And that might actually be selling this microphone a little bit short. This is totally passable audio quality. It sounds good. No average listener is going to complain about your audio quality if you're using this. I wouldn't use it for like voiceover work. I wouldn't use it for music, but I do think for spoken word in a content creation setting, this could work very well. Now, one question that I absolutely will see in the comments is, which FiFine microphone should I get then? And a lot of that is just going to come down to what sound you liked the most and what one you think is going to work for your voice. Another very important part of it is budget. Yeah, these aren't like insanely different prices. You know, there's about a $20 variance to each of them. But if you like the sound of the AM8 the most and you think it's going to fit your voice well, just get this, save the $20 to $40. And one other thing that I want to mention when it comes to this that some people are going to be mad about, but also pick which one you like the look of the most, because that is part of this if it is going to be on camera. Additionally, if you are going to be traveling with the microphone at all, I would say don't consider the AM8. Probably don't even consider the K688 because of that kind of permanent shock mount. I could see some issues with that. I would just go straight for the Tank3 if that's the case. But overall, I feel like FiFine did a fine job with the AM8. And my rating for it on the BBSAR, I believe a 7 is good, definitely worth buying. An 8 is a very strong buy. I'm going to go with an 8. I feel like this is a very strong buy at this price point, especially for people that are starting out. Now, I do want to remind you, if any of you would like to win a FiFine AM8, leave a comment down below, make sure you're subscribed, and I will do a little raffle soon. I do want to say thank you to FiFine for sending me the AM8, but I do want to give the biggest thank you to all of the Audio Hotline members. They are just amazing. They're fantastic. Best damn people I know. And I actually do have an exclusive member podcast that if you do want to become a member, you can get access to. I've also started putting like some behind the scenes stuff on there too. Additionally, a thank you to all of the subscribers and anyone that watches this. I appreciate all of you. And I'll see you audio nerds next time.